Here is the recap of the first 3 seasons of Invincible. The world of this cartoon is very similar to ours, except that it is full of people with superpowers. These can be mutants, aliens, creatures from another universe, people in supersuits, and so on. Of course, there are individuals who decided to use their powers for selfish purposes, but there are also heroes who want to help humanity. These heroes are divided into leagues. The strongest call themselves the Guardians of the Globe, who eliminate serious threats. But there are also smaller leagues with weaker characters. Their activities are trying to control the government organization Global Defense Agency, which is led by Cecil Stedman, and his right hand is an agent named Donald. The main character of this work is Mark Grayson, whose father is the strongest superhero on Earth named Omni-Man. Omni-Man appeared here many years ago from the very advanced planet of Viltrum and told everyone the following story. His civilization has reached such an advanced stage that they have decided to help less developed worlds. And each Viltrumite, upon reaching a certain age, chooses a solar system and protects it from all sorts of threats. Also, each Viltrumite is incredibly strong, can fly, lives for several hundred years, and is almost indestructible. After flying to Earth, Omni-Man falls in love with a woman named Debbie, and they have a son named Mark. Until the age of 18, he didn't have any powers, but after growing up, he has the same powers as his father. The boy decides to follow in the footsteps of his ancestors, becomes a superhero, and chooses the pseudonym Invincible. At school, Mark meets a girl named Amber, and soon they start a romance. But because the guy spends a lot of time saving lives, he is constantly late for dates and lies to Amber, which makes her incredibly angry. Meanwhile, Invincible is trying to be a hero in his town, and his father takes him to Art Rosenbaum to make him a superhero costume. Suddenly, those Guardians of the Globe are urgently called to their headquarters, but it turns out to be a trap, and there they are waiting for Omni-Man, who cruelly kills each hero, and then from the injuries he loses consciousness. The Global Defense Agency arrives and tries to figure out what happened here. But they can't prove that Omni-Man is to blame, so they take him to a special hospital and start investigating. Meanwhile, creatures from a parallel universe called Flaxons are attacking the Earth, and since the Guardians of the Globe are no longer there, they are trying to be stopped by the Youth Superhero League, which includes Atomic Eve, who can manipulate matter and energy; Duplicate, able to create copies of herself; Rex empowers objects with energy that explode when thrown; and then there's the robot. His story I'll tell later. Invincible joins them, but the Flaxons outnumber them. However, the villains suddenly start to age and retreat into their portals. It turns out that time flows completely differently in their universe, and they just can't exist in our world. Soon they do attack again, as many years have passed during their time away from their planet, and they have found a way to not age on Earth. The weak superheroes are unable to stand up to them. Omni-Man flies into a portal, single-handedly almost completely destroys the Flaxon civilization, and then returns home. After all this mess, Cecil wants to test the Invincible for loyalty to people, and also to see what the guy is capable of, and asks him to go into space, as there is a certain object looming on the planet. It turns out to be an alien named Alan, who tells Mark about the existence of the Coalition of Planets, created to protect worlds from the threat of galactic scale. Demon detective Damien Darkblood begins to investigate the deaths of the Guardians of the Globe, and suspects that the Omni-Man are to blame. He finds no hard evidence of this, but plants a seed of doubt in his wife. After a while, the agency decides that Darkblood is on the side of evil, and Cecil, along with Donald, send him back to hell. The Global Defense Agency decides to gather new Guardians of the Globe and assigns Robot to find such superheroes. After a while, he takes Rex and Duplicate from the Youth League there, as well as 3 new characters. Monster Girl, who turns into a monster but gets younger with each transformation; Shrinking Ray, who has the ability to shrink in size; and Black Samson, a hero who has lost his superpowers but has a special suit that gives him advantages. Atomic Eve refused to participate because her boyfriend Rex cheated on her, and she decided to become a lone hero. Eve also gets close to Invincible. They become friends and fight villains together several times. Soon Eve runs away from home, settles in the forest, and with her powers helps ordinary people. Cecil asks Mark for help again. Humanity sends a mission to Mars, but the public doesn't know that there are actually Martians living on this planet, and the task of the Invincible is to secretly protect the astronauts without being seen. Arriving at the place, the research group is attacked by locals and wants to kill them, as on the planet there is a kind of creatures called sickvids, which, having come into contact with people, acquire intelligence and become incredibly dangerous. Mark saves almost all the astronauts, and as I understand, the one infected left on Mars destroys the Martian civilization. A certain man with superpowers, nicknamed Titan, works for a local criminal genius, Machine Head, as he threatens to kill Titan's daughter. He contacts Invincible and asks for his help in destroying the villain. Mark agrees, but upon arriving they are met by several supervillains who nearly kill the protagonist. Omni-Man is watching his son all this time and wants to teach him a lesson, which is that Invincible should not be distracted by all sorts of small things, but save humanity from more serious disasters. However, seeing that Mark is in danger, he calls the new Guardians of the Globe, who rescue the hero. Talk, the strongest of the supervillains, easily defeats all the new arrivals and leaves the battlefield, saying that he is ashamed to fight with them. After that, the heroes get up again and defeat the remaining opponents. After a while, Titan takes the place of Machine Head and becomes the new head of the underworld. Also after this mess, Black Samson regains his lost superpowers, and Robot falls in love with the monster girl. Meanwhile, Robot helps two supervillains, the Mahler twins, who have mastered cloning themselves and are generally quite advanced in science, escape from a special prison. The robot gets Rex's DNA and asks them to create a clone of him. After a while, he shows up at the twins, and we learn that all this time the robot is just a controlled drone, and this creature is controlling him. The twins copy his consciousness into a clone of young Rex, and the original dies in his arms. After that, Robot tries to arrest the twins, as they are criminals, but he fails, and the villains manage to escape. They decide to take revenge on him by digging up the corpse of the Immortal, the former Guardians of the Globe, who was killed by Omni-Man, and try to resurrect him by attaching a mind control mechanism to him. Eventually, the mind control fails, and the twins are arrested by the agency. Mark's best friend William calls him and Amber to another city for a field trip. Coincidentally, at the same time, a local mad scientist is experimenting on students and making them very strong cyborgs, capable of competing in strength with the Invincible. Mark manages to deal with them, and the mad scientist is taken away by the Global Defense Agency. William and Amber also learn that Mark is a superhero, but Amber breaks up with him. Debbie finds Omni-Man's torn clothes, which he hid after the battle with the Guardians of the Globe, and takes them to Art Rosenbaum for analysis. He confirms the woman's speculation that her husband killed the Defenders and attacked them first. Debbie confronts Omni-Man with this, but he simply walks away. The Global Defense Agency hides the woman, as they realize that the conflict with Omni-Man cannot be avoided, and hope that the Invincible will be able to cope with it. Upon returning home, Omni-Man fails to find his wife and discovers that his house is being watched by the agency. He kills everyone, including Donald, and goes in search of his son to tell him the whole truth. Cecil tries his best to stop him, throwing missiles, orbital lasers, and the cyborgs that the mad scientist built for the agency. But Omni-Man can't be stopped. Soon, the agency sends a huge reinforced monster at him, and also the Immortal arrives at the party, who was revived by the twins and could not be controlled. But Omni-Man again kills him and deals with the monster. Upon meeting Mark, his father tells him the true story. The Viltrumites are indeed a very advanced civilization, but all is not so bright on their planet. To become so powerful, they have spent years exterminating the weak on their homeworld and leaving only the strongest. The Viltrumites decided to conquer all the other worlds, and their empire only grew. But as the size of Emeria grew, it became more and more difficult for them to conquer new worlds, as the army was scattered. So they found a new strategy. They sent one of their own to the planets they wanted to capture, and under the guise of a hero, he was supposed to weaken the defense of the planet, and eventually, when the Viltrumite army arrived, the population would be unable to resist. Omni-Man's own task was just that. He asks his son to join him, but Mark refuses and takes the side of the Earth. After a short battle in which a great number of innocent people die, the villain defeats the Invincible, but does not kill him, and leaves the planet, which no Viltrumite has ever done before. After a while, Mark comes to his senses, and Cecil tells the guy that they heard the whole conversation with his father with the help of special drones tracking them. The director of the agency informs Mark that Omni-Man has apparently gone somewhere far away and will not return soon, so humanity will have to prepare for the invasion of Viltrumites, and Invincible will have to become stronger. This is the end of the first season. After what happened in the previous season, Mark Grayson is depressed. The guy wants to help humanity, but Cecil thinks he's not ready to join the big leagues yet. Meanwhile, we are shown an alternate Earth from another universe. There, Mark sided with his father and enslaved the Earth with him. Of course there is resistance, but the couple systematically exterminates them. One day Invincible and Omni-Man get to their base and destroy the remnants of the superheroes of the Earth, but suddenly one of the rebels teleports somewhere. Turns out scientist Angstrom has the ability to travel across universes. His world was also destroyed by the Omni-Man, and now he wants revenge. To do this, he assembles his own copies from other worlds. The man then helps the Mauler twins in our universe escape, and asks for a facility that will merge the minds of all his copies. Cecil learns of some strange activity and sends Mark there. Arriving at the place, the guy does not understand what is happening and accidentally destroys the installation. As everyone thought, there was no one left alive, except the Invincible. However, the Maulers and the main Angstrom managed to survive. Now the mutated scientist, who has hundreds of consciousnesses in his head, wants revenge not only on his Omni-Man, but also on our Mark Grayson. Mark, his girlfriend Amber, and best friend William enroll in the same university. However, due to constant missions, Invincible misses classes time after time and spends less and less time with Amber. In one of his forays, he goes to a cursed city where he fights a crazy superhero. Then dives to the bottom of the ocean, where he saves the underwater people from a huge monster. In doing so, Cecil notices that Invincible got sick from the monster's scream, and he orders scientists to research it to create a weapon against the Viltrumites. One day, aliens come to Mark and persuade him to fly to their planet to save them from an upcoming catastrophe. Invincible agrees, but when he gets there, he sees Omni-Man. The guy has mixed feelings, as on the one hand he can't forgive him for what he did, and on the other hand, Mark missed his father incredibly. Omni-Man reports that he regrets what he has done, but nothing can be returned. It turns out that the man has been wandering through space for a long time and even decided to end his life, but accidentally noticed the aliens crashing. He saved them, and arriving on this planet, fell in love with a local resident. Mark learns that he now has a brother, who because of genetic features grows very fast. Suddenly the planet is attacked by the Viltrumites, and Omni-Man asks his son to help protect the local people, as well as his brother. However, during the battle, the main characters are defeated. Omni-Man is imprisoned, and soon he is to be executed. Meanwhile, General Craig orders Mark to return to Earth and prepare his planet for the invasion of the Viltrumites. If he doesn't, millions of people will suffer. Mark recovers for 2 months and then returns to Earth with his brother. Cecil sees that Robot is failing in his task of leading the Guardians of the Globe, so he puts Immortal in charge, and also puts a new member named Bulletproof to them. We learn that after the astronauts returned from an unsuccessful mission to Mars in the previous season, a Martian came with them. He has the ability to take on any appearance and change his body at will. Soon, Shapesmith joins the ranks of the Guardians of the Globe and believes that no one noticed that he is an alien, but it turns out that everyone has long guessed. Suddenly, it turns out that a huge ship is coming from Mars, so Cecil asks Shifter what he knows about it. The alien tells him that if the Sequids have taken over the human brain, they have become just as intelligent as they are one mind. Now they are most likely flying to Earth to take over all humans. Cecil sends several Guardians, as well as Invincible and Atomic Eve, to intercept the ship. Eventually, the main characters manage to disconnect Sequid from the astronaut that started all the trouble, after which the main characters return to Earth. However, we see that one monster has snuck onto the planet and has recaptured the consciousness of a human being. Meanwhile, Mark's mother begins to take care of his brother, whom he brought from outer space. She names him Oliver and hires a babysitter who admits to working for Cecil. While the rest of the Guardians of the Globe were in space, Cecil sends Rex, Duplicate, and Ray on a mission, but the forces are unequal. Duplicate is killed, Ray is on the brink of death, and Rex gets his arm chopped off and shot in the head. From the last forces, he manages to defeat the villains. However, he survives. The guy realizes that he was an asshole and is now ready to change. Immortal decides to leave his post after Duplicate's death, since he loved her. But at the end of the season, we learn that the woman is alive. She's just tired of her copies dying countless times. Also, we see that Donald is not dead, and soon he begins to guess that something is wrong here. The man finds a tape of him dying at the hands of the Omni-Man and learns that he is a cyborg. Cecil tells him that Donald has died many times, saving people, and each time he was restored, while erasing his memory. And this is what Donald himself wanted. At first, the man was concerned, but eventually accepted his fate and forbade further erasure of his memory. In parallel, we are also told the story of Monster Girl and Robot. The guy is in love with her, but because of his inability to communicate, their relationship doesn't mesh. However, at the end of the season, the guys find a common language, and Robot promises to create a technology that will help the girl not to grow younger with each transformation into a monster. Mark remembers that before the Viltrumites took his father away, Omni-Man told him that he could find answers in his books. But his mother threw them away. Mark goes to Rosenbaum's to have a heart-to-heart talk, and it turns out that the old man still has Omni-Man's books. Invincible reads them and realizes that they describe things and creatures that could, in theory, help fight the Viltrumites. Like a racer with a weapon capable of destroying any matter, or monsters on a distant planet that can easily handle the Viltrumites. We are shown the past of the planet Unopa. The locals were enslaved by the Viltrumites, but some managed to escape and soon joined a coalition of planets that oppose the Viltrumites. The Unopians began genetic experiments and soon created Alan, a mutant capable of defeating the villains. However, it turns out that he is still weaker than any Viltrumite. Soon he is attacked by 3 of them and mortally wounded. He is rescued by the coalition, but their leader Thetis disables his life support machine. Alan surprisingly survives and even becomes several times stronger. Thetis reveals that he did this intentionally, as he was sure Alan would evolve. He also reveals that he is a Viltrumite who has rebelled against his own people in the past. Upon hearing of Mark Grayson from Earth, the man has hope that they can handle the enemy, so Thetis sends Alan back to the Invincible with an offer to join the coalition. Alan reaches Earth and asks Mark to join them, but he cannot leave Earth when it is constantly threatened by various dangers. However, Invincible tells the alien about his father's books and things that can harm the Viltrumites, after which Alan takes off. On his way, he comes across a Viltrumite ship, where he is attacked by one of them. It turns out that Alan has become much stronger and may even be able to defeat his enemies. But to get more information, he intentionally pretends to lose the fight, so he is taken prisoner. There, Alan meets Omni-Man and offers to run away together, as he realizes that the man has repented of his actions and wants to confront the Viltrumites. Amber and Mark are on a date when a Viltrumite named Anissa suddenly appears. She threatens Invincible that she will kill the woman if he starts to resist. Anissa just wants to talk and sets up a meeting with him. Soon she asks Mark if he is willing to take over his father's responsibility and help enslave the Earth. Mark refuses, and Anissa beats him severely. Afterward, she warns him. The next time they come to check on him, they will kill millions of people if he doesn't obey. After a while, Amber breaks up with Mark, as she realizes they are on completely different levels. The mutant scientist Angstrom from the beginning of the season finally decides to act. He takes Mark's family hostage and plans to kill Mark himself. The man wears out Invincible by throwing him from one dimension to another. When the exhausted boy returns to his home, he sees that Angstrom has beaten his mother. Mark goes berserk and starts beating the scientist. They are transported to some abandoned world where Mark kills Angstrom. Invincible is shocked that he killed the man. He thinks he won't be able to return, but suddenly a portal opens and the Guardians of the Globe appear from it. They are from the future of his world and create a portal for Mark, but before leaving, Atomic Eve confesses that she has always loved him. Invincible returns home. He decides to drop out of college and become not only stronger, but learn to control himself if he wants to be better than his father. This is the end of the 2nd season. Meanwhile, Nynaeve has had feelings for Lon. Moiraine guard throughout the season and sleeps with him. 3 months pass and Mark is training to become stronger. He still remembers Eva's words from the other reality and thinks about how to confess his feelings. Eventually, he does, and he and Eva start dating. One day, Rex is attacked by Multipol, Duplicate's brother, who believes Rex is responsible for his sister's death. However, Invincible stops the guy, and Multipol is sent to prison, as he is an assassin and works for a major crime syndicate called the Order. Meanwhile, the Guardians of the Globe learn that Duplicate is alive and about to marry an immortal. Doc Seismic, who has appeared in every season and has been a mediocre villain, escapes from prison. He, controlling underground creatures, kidnaps all the superheroes of America and wreaks total havoc. Even Invincible and Eve can't do anything about him. Cecil has to use his trump card. He sends cyborgs created by a scientist who has gone mad, as well as the former superhero Darkwing, who went off the rails last season and started killing people. Together they managed to defeat Seismic. However, Invincible is not happy about it. He breaks into the Pentagon and demands an explanation from Cecil. After all, he believes that it is impossible to use cyborgs of a crazy doctor and a former supervillain, though for good purposes. Cecil tries to explain to him that there are exceptions, but Mark does not agree and starts to behave aggressively. So Cecil decides to calm the guy down. He uses cyborgs, as well as a special chip implanted in Invincible that causes him unbearable pain. Mark escapes from the Pentagon and flies to the Defenders of the Earth. He asks them to help him, but Cecil demands that they not interfere. However, Mark's friends disagree with the actions of the head of the Guardians of the Globe. They fight off the cyborgs and pull the chip out of Invincible. Afterward, Mark informs Cecil that he no longer works for him. The Guardians of the Globe are also split up. Monster Girl, Rex, Bulletproof, Ray, and Robot leave. Immortal, Shapesmith, Samson, and Duplicate remain and are joined by Darkwing, who claims to have changed and will now be on the side of good. We learn about Cecil's past. He used to be an ordinary special agent, and once saved an entire city by sacrificing himself. His skin melted, but the government transplanted him with artificial skin, and he survived. At first, Cecil had the same principles as Mark. He was against giving villains a second chance and putting them out on the streets as superheroes. Due to a disagreement with his superiors, he ends up in a prison for people with superpowers, and surprisingly, he manages to keep order there. When the head of the Global Defense Agency resigns, he makes Cecil his successor. On almost his first day on the job, Omni-Man arrives on Earth. Cecil greeted the alien himself and immediately figured out that he came here not just to protect the planet. However, he decided to play along with him, because after all these years, Cecil's principles have changed, and he is ready to do anything to protect the Earth. Oliver, the brother of Invincible, grows beyond his years and acquires his superpowers much earlier than the time limit for Viltrumites. This doesn't please both Mark and his mom, as Oliver is still a child and doesn't understand many things. Invincible has to promise his brother to teach him how to fight. Together they go to Rosenbaum's, where they make new costumes. Oliver chooses the nickname Omni-Man, and Mark has to explain to him that this is a bad choice, as people are still not recovered from their father's evil deeds. Suddenly, Mark learns of an incident at the military base. It turns out the Mahler brothers are plotting to launch a missile that will shut down all electronics on the planet. Invincible asked his brother not to join the fight and just watch, but he didn't listen. And while Mark tries to stop the rocket that flew away, Oliver mercilessly kills both villains. The boy is indifferent to human lives, and his loved ones give him a serious talk. After which Oliver begins to realize that there are some things you shouldn't do, even when fighting bad guys. One day during Mark's date with Eve, two time travelers appear and kidnap Mark. It turns out that in their future, a dictator with superpowers has taken over the Earth and keeps all people in fear. They ask Invincible to kill the villain, and soon it turns out that this dictator is an immortal. Years ago, Mark ruled the Earth, but he left it and put the immortal in charge. However, something went wrong, and he began to go mad. A villain deliberately set up a dictatorship so that Mark would show up and kill him, putting him out of his misery. A short battle ensues, and Invincible has to kill the immortal by ripping his head off. And we learn that he can be resurrected if his head is reattached. Mark tells this to the two time travelers and asks them to bring him home. Debbie, Mark's mom, starts dating a regular man named Paul, and eventually tells him that her ex is Omni-Man and that her son is Invincible. Mark is angry at first, but then realizes that his mom is having a hard time getting over the last few months, so he forgives Debbie for revealing his secret without asking him. Meanwhile, Ava returns to her parents as she wants to mend her relationship with them. She and Mark realize that they are adults and it is time for them to earn money. So they offer the prison for superhumans their protection. Roughly speaking, if they have any problems, they can call Invincible, and he will rush over as soon as he can. Meanwhile, Mr. Liu, the head of a crime syndicate called the Order, demands that Titan get his best assassin, Multi-Paul, out of jail. Otherwise, he'll kill the man and his entire family. The cunning Titan comes up with a plan and manipulates both Invincible and Machine Head, who is in prison. Soon, Titan refuses Mr. Liu and he transforms into a huge immortal dragon. He thinks he has gotten rid of Titan and attacks the prison, which is defended by Invincible. Multi-Paul ends up escaping. Machine Head kills Mr. Liu and takes his place in the crime syndicate, and Titan demands that the Order leave his city alone. However, at the end of the episode, we see that Mr. Liu survived. A man named Scott had very weak superpowers. He could absorb and redirect any energy in small amounts. When Invincible and Omni-Man fought in Chicago and destroyed half the city, Scott's sister and her child were killed. The man hated the Invincible and now wants to bring him to justice. He can't do it by legal means, so he takes a job in a Pentagon lab, where he steals special biocapacitors that enhance his superpowers. Scott is a bit cuckoo, but he doesn't want to hurt anyone, so he stages a kidnapping, taking his wife and son hostage. Mark arrives and things get out of hand. In the end, Scott's wife and child are killed by his lightning bolts, after which the man is sent to prison. Also of note this season, Rudy, who I will continue to refer to as Robot, creates a special belt for Monster Girl that keeps her from getting younger during her transformations. Meanwhile, we are shown what is happening in the prison where Omni-Man and Alan are being held. The guards attempt to execute the one-eyed alien, but find no equipment that can kill him. Alan is able to escape from imprisonment at any time, but first he wants to win Omni-Man over to his side, since they'll need all the help they can get in the battle against the Viltrumites. Except Omni-Man won't listen to his cellmate and is ready to be executed very soon when the Viltrumites arrive. All the while, Alan and Omni-Man have a heart-to-heart talk and even become friends. Eventually, two Viltrumites arrive to carry out the execution. Alan realizes it's time for action. He stages a riot in the prison and even frees the Thok battle beast that Invincible fought in the first season. Alan succumbs to the Viltrumites, and Omni-Man thinks his friend is facing death, so he frees himself and begins to fight. Eventually, the main characters win and Omni-Man tells the most important secret of his race. It turns out that there are only about 50 pure-blooded Viltrumites left, so it won't be as hard to defeat them as it seemed at first glance. We also see that the battle beast has torn his Viltrumite opponent to shreds, and after a while he is picked up by some kind of spaceship. We learn that Angstrom survived after Mark turned him into a bloody mess. He teleports himself to another dimension, where he asks some cybernetic surgeons to restore him in exchange for some kind of favor. He soon finds the evil Invincibles in other universes and promises to help them take over their worlds if they help exact revenge on Mark. The villains start destroying all the cities one by one, killing everyone in their path. In this way, Angstrom wants to make people fear the very image of Invincible. The superheroes of Earth try to stop the attackers, but the forces are not equal. As a result, major cities are destroyed, and of the known characters dies Rex, who sacrifices himself to save the others, and Nightwing, who transported one of the evil Invincible to the Dark Dimension. After a few days, the surviving Invincibles realize that Angstrom is not going to keep his promise and want to kill him, so Angstrom takes them to a desert dimension. Meanwhile, Mark finds the villain and fights him. He again hesitates to kill him, and Angstrom escapes. The villain turns to those surgeons again, but they also realize that the man's words are not to be believed and take him under their control with a special brain chip. The rebuilding of the cities after the attack of the evil Invincibles is well underway. Mark is upset about everything that has happened, believing it to be partly his fault. Suddenly, the Viltrumite conquest arrives on Earth, unhappy that Mark has not prepared the planet for conquering. Invincible fights back, but the stranger is only too happy to do so, as he loves battles and has been bored lately. They engage in a long and brutal battle, in which thousands of innocent people are killed again. Cecil and the other superheroes can't do anything to help, as they have not yet recovered from the previous battle. Oliver comes to the rescue, and Conquest nearly tears him in two. Eve then decides to help, but the villain mortally wounds her as well. Mark fights Conquest in desperation, but he is too strong. Eventually, Eve's innate limitations are removed at the threshold of death. She recovers and manages to wound the invader, and the crippled Invincible finishes off Conquest. At least he thinks so. Because at the end of the episode, we see that Cecil has placed him in a special prison that can explode with a nuclear blast at any hint of escape. Cecil intends to torture all information about the Viltrumites out of the prisoner. Time passes. At Rex's funeral, Robot informs everyone that he will take his nickname in honor of his fallen comrade. Meanwhile, in the sewers, the surviving Sequid has multiplied and is ready to take over the land. And in the last frames of the series, we are shown that in the underworld, Damien Darkblood meets with the Demon Lord and informs him that he has found an incredibly strong person on Earth, which will help his master to take his place on the throne of Hell. This is the end of the 3rd season. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the like button. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.